So my name's Simon Porter. I'm 48 years old in 2 or 3 weeks. I'm deputy head at the school, and I like film. Joe,
Happy birthday.
thank you. 3 weeks time. Yeah.
Do you have a favourite thriller film?
Favourite thriller film? A fun film. Yeah, I've got loads actually. So I would
split it off into horror, thriller,
okay.
psychological.
Yeah, I think if I start with probably the master of all thrillers, which would be a Hitchcock film, which is North by Northwest. So for me, that is probably the genesis of all modern good thrillers. I mean, Hitchcock is a master of those things. And then I think if I went through time, I would be looking at probably 80s and 90s. Adam, I know, thinks I'm obsessed with the 80s and 90s. But I would go for probably films by director more than anything else. So if it was a good director, then I would be interested in the film. So Martin Scorsese would be one of the first ones that I would go and see. If it was a Scorsese film, I would look at that and I would consider going towards that film. Scorsese films I would go for would be The Departed, which is Jack Nicholson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon. Very powerful police thriller about an undercover cop in a gang. Shutter Island's an interesting one, which is has got a nice twist to the end of that film, but mock horror and deep psychological thriller. Again, a DiCaprio film. So those people who think that DiCaprio is some kind of teen idol from the Romeo and Juliet days and Titanic are missing the fact that actually he's a pretty good actor. He was excellent in Django Unchained as well as the slave owner. I would also go for Tarantino. Now Tarantino gets criticised a hell of a lot. He has made some pretty awful films, but either side of that, bookending that, he's made some pretty outstanding films. When you look back at films like Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs, they were groundbreaking. Yes, he's derivative. Yes, he steals from cinema, but I like to think of him as a student of cinema. So when you see a Tarantino film, you get all that. I would also add in the Coen brothers, in particular a film called No Country for Old Men, and even ones which are quite commercial, so films like Bryan Singer's The Usual Suspects. Again, a lot of people don't like that film. They think it's just too commercial, but it works for me. It's good character development, good storyline.
All right. Do you think there should be more thrillers?
Yeah, for me, because I'm a film snob. So,
in film today, do you think there's enough thrillers?
No, and I know the reason why as well. If you think about films that make money, they're kids' films, and they are action films. But the action films, the difficulty with them is that they're made generic, so they're made for a worldwide audience. The difficulty with making a film like that is you've got to please everybody. So what pleases people is big explosions, a relatively good-looking bloke, a good-looking woman, they're in some kind of relationship, it's pretty sanitised as a film, and there's a threat, and then they win in the end. Because you've got to please a mass audience. In the old days, in the 80s, 90s, 70s, you would get films that were made for an audience in a particular country. You get film that was made for a British audience or an American audience. So I think of a film like Harry Brown, which is Michael Caine is he's very old in that film. He must be in his 60s and 70s when he made it. But it's a British-made film for a British audience, and it's hard, and it's gritty, and it's nasty, and you couldn't sell that worldwide. Now, my life with an 8-year-old daughter is spent going to see Hotel Transylvania 2 and Monsters University and Tinkerbell and the Great Fairy Rescue. And those have been the most enjoyable 2 hours of sleep that I've ever had, because I go, she sat with her pick and mix, I've eaten my pick and mix, and then I fall asleep, and then I wake up at the end. I don't get to see as many films as I want. If I could, it'd be thrillers only. They don't make thrillers because they don't make enough money, and the art has gone out of cinema. It's all about money now.
All right. What aspects of thrillers do you most enjoy?
For me, really clear. It's the narrative, it's the storyline, it's a creative storyline, and that can be a good example of that. I mentioned the Coen brothers' No Country for Old Men. So at the beginning of that film, you've got some money which has been stolen from a drug cartel. A guy finds it, and the rest of the film is about Javier Bardem, who was one of the baddies in a James Bond film, Skyfall, I think. And he plays a pretty silent killer, and he stalks the guy who's got the money through the entire 2 hours of the film, and he kills anybody who gets in his way. But he doesn't kill them in a kind of normal way, so he doesn't shoot them, he doesn't stab them. He's very creative about that. So, for example, he will take something like a fire extinguisher, and then use it in that way. And so I like the creativity of that. I like the fact that it's got a storyline and I'm following in it. It's got a strong narrative drive. The other thing that I really like is character development. So, if I said to you George Clooney has not got a great reputation.
Dusk Till Dawn.
Apart from Dusk Till Dawn, we're back in Tarantino territory with Rodriguez there before Spy Kids, and all the damage that he did with that. But we've got Clooney. Was great in Dusk Till Dawn. He's pure Hollywood in the sense that he looks the part, but he's hamming it up. He's mocking himself. He makes all these movies that make loads of movies. He makes movies that make loads of money, and then he makes a film like Michael Clayton. And Michael Clayton is a very, very clever film. It's a film which he plays a kind of fixer. There's a problem. There's a big corporation who are trying to ruin a town, and he becomes involved in trying to solve this problem. It is one of the as a piece of acting, and you can't put these two things together until you actually see it. As a piece of acting, it's one of the best I've seen. Clooney is just fantastic in it. Now, he's not Oscar-winning fantastic, but as a thriller goes, it's amazing. There's a scene at the end of that film where he's just sat in a car, and there's no dialogue, and it's just his expression on his face. Now, to act that is quite clever. That is actually a rip-off. I know my films. There's a film back in the 70s called The Long Good Friday, which is a Bob Hoskins film, which is about gangsters in Britain. And at the end of that film, he sits in a taxi and he does exactly the same thing. Now, I'm a bit like Tarantino. I know my film, so I recognise when there's a rip-off going on somewhere, or a bit of respect shown to the past. So character development, narrative drive. As I said, I'm a film snob, so if it's not good enough, I won't watch it. I haven't got time to waste.
But you watch Dusk Till Dawn still?
I watch Dusk Till Dawn because Dusk Till Dawn is a great film, and sometimes you need just escapism, and you need to be in Mexico in a place where people turn into vampires. Sometimes there's a space for that in your life.
What do you not like in thriller films?
I don't like it when they lose courage and they stop being brave. So. When they give in to commercialism. So if I think about something like a film that doesn't do that, Seven, David Fincher, Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman hunting serial killer Kevin Spacey. He kills 7 people, and he does that following the 7 deadly sins. So gluttony, eating too much. He force feeds somebody until they die. Okay? Envy, where somebody's jealous because they can see something, he takes their eyes out. So he goes through these series of killings. That film never, at any stage, gives in to Hollywood. It's a very successful film. It's a very powerful film, but it doesn't give in. So films that give in, I don't like. Another good example, another Fincher film would be Fight Club. Fight Club was completely missold. People didn't go and see Fight Club. It was really unsuccessful in terms of box office because they thought it was about like underground boxing clubs. It's not about that at all. No. Fight Club is about the failure of capitalism It's the failure of our modern life and how men are under as much pressure about body image and what they've achieved in their lives as women have always been. That film again doesn't really intelligent film, and it doesn't lose its bottle. It sticks with it right to the end. You know, the scene where when Norton shoots himself, when he realises that Brad Pitt doesn't exist and it's all inside his head. You throw in the song "Where Is My Mind" by the Pixies at the end, and you've got just a perfect moment in film. It never once says, "I need an explosion." It never once says, "Actually, we need a pop song in there." It chooses its music right. Even down to the kind of the opening credits, the editing of that is just fantastic. You always get that in a Fincher film. You get that in Seven as well.
What sort of character types you like in thrillers? Have you got any good examples?
Yeah, I've given you a kind of a real range of film. We've probably talked about 10 different films there, but I'll throw in another one. This is more commercial, but still works for me. Training Day. Denzel Washington as the kind of corrupt drug cop. Ethan Hawke as the young rookie learning his trade. A very, very clever film. I think Denzel Washington won an Oscar for Best Actor. It was an interesting year that because Halle Berry won Best Female Actor, and so for the first time ever you had a black male actor and a black female actor both winning the main Oscar. That film has two characters. I like the rookie character who's got to learn his trade and makes mistakes. Now he turns out to be the hero in that, and he kind of he mans up and he takes on Denzel Washington. But equally, I like evil characters. I like people who are amoral. I like people who you can't work out why they are what they are and what their motivation is.
Like Hannibal.
Yeah, I like characters who are just dark and frightening, because there are people like that in the world, and I think cinema's job is to show those people to us so we can get a sense of it. Hannibal is a really good example of that. But equally in Training Day, there are some Latino drug gangs and criminal gangs in that, and even the small kind of characters who are only in it for a few minutes are really well crafted. You totally believe in them, not just because of the way they look, but the way they speak and the way they act. So when you've got minor characters who are that good, you feel that you can escape into that film and you're part of it. The other thing about character is, probably like most people, I just want to be those people. and I will, if it's a good film, I'll absorb myself in it. And I will be Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. I will be Clooney's character in, with the shoulder tattoo and all the rest of it in Dusk Till Dawn. And I will be, I'll be the clever Kevin Spacey character in Usual Suspects. I'll be the psychotic killer in A Few Good Men.
You like your role models then?
I like my role models, and they're not particularly well chosen. I don't choose good people because for 2 hours, if I'm escaping the world, I want to go and live someone else's life.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I won't take any more of your time.
Thank you very much, and Joe and Adam, it's been a pleasure.